The sound of the kick landed before the scream. A dull, brutal thud echoed across the marble floor of the restaurant terrace, chairs scraping backward as people jumped to their feet. A glass shattered. Someone gasped. Phones lifted instinctively, red recording dots blinking alive as a woman stumbled forward, her balance breaking, her hands slamming against the table to keep herself from falling flat. Did you see that? Amara's breath left her lungs in a sharp, ugly burst as pain flared through her side. Not just physical pain. Something older, deeper, the kind that didn't bleed but stayed. The man standing behind her, Darren, didn't look shocked. He looked relieved, like he'd been holding something inside for years and had finally let it out in public where it could be witnessed. Don't act like a victim, he snapped, loud enough for everyone to hear. You always loved attention. A hush fell over the crowd, thick and heavy. A few people stepped forward, then hesitated. No one seemed to know where to place themselves, between the man still standing tall and the woman bent slightly at the waist, one hand pressed to her side. Amara straightened slowly. Her eyes lifted, calm but dark, locking onto Darren's face. Not fear, not a shock, just a quiet, dangerous stillness. That was when the murmurs started. That's his ex. I heard she let herself go. Why would he do that here? Someone should call the police. Darren laughed under his breath, adjusting his cufflinks like he hadn't just crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. You really follow me here? He said. This is what you do now? Show up where you're not invited. Amara opened her mouth, but the words didn't come. And that, more than anything, seemed to irritate him. Before she could speak, before anyone else could, a familiar voice cut through the noise. Hello, fam. Welcome back to Afro-Korean Tender Heart Stories, where love, pain, and destiny collide in the most unexpected ways. If stories that cross cultures and touch the heart mean something to you, subscribe and stay with us till the end. The moment passed like a held breath being released. Amara finally spoke, her voice steady despite the way her fingers trembled. I didn't know you'd be here. Darren scoffed. Of course you didn't. You always had a way of pretending things were accidents. Someone behind him whispered, Man, you shouldn't have done that. He turned sharply. Mind your business. A woman rushed forward, placing herself beside Amara. Are you okay? Amara nodded once. I am. But her eyes never left Darren. Years collapsed into seconds between them. The way he used to look at her when he was angry. The way his jaw tightened when he felt exposed. She recognized the expression instantly, and so did he. You think people don't remember? Darren said, lowering his voice, but not enough. You embarrassed me back then. Every room we walked into, I felt it. The looks, the jokes. And now you want to act like you're what? Dignified. A few heads turned. Someone muttered, This is messed up. Amara swallowed. This isn't the place. That's rich, Darren replied. You never cared about the place. The restaurant manager appeared, flustered. Sir, we're going to have to ask. Stay out of it, Darren snapped. This is personal. The manager hesitated. The cameras kept rolling. Amara exhaled slowly, as if she were counting something down inside herself. I'm leaving, she said. I don't want trouble. Darren's smile twisted. Too late for that. She turned away from him, reaching for her bag. That was when a ripple of tension moved through the crowd, not because of what Darren did, but because of what he didn't notice. At the far edge of the terrace, near the valet stand, a black sedan had stopped. Its engine remained on. Inside, a man sat perfectly still, hands folded, eyes fixed on the scene unfolding through the windshield. He didn't rush. He didn't speak. He simply watched as Amara winced slightly while adjusting her coat, watched Darren's mouth continue to move, watched the way the crowd shifted uneasily. A phone buzzed softly in the man's hand. He glanced down at the screen. A video had already been sent. He tapped play once. Only once. If you've ever seen power stay silent before it moves, you know the feeling it leaves behind. If this moment made your chest tighten, tap like and let us know in the comments what you think Darren deserves. Because what comes next changes everything. The man in the car lifted his gaze again, this time locking onto Darren's face through the glass, his expression unreadable. And Darren, still laughing, still loud, still certain he was in control, had no idea that his life had just split cleanly into before and after. Amara didn't look back as she stepped away from the table. Not when someone called her name. Not when a hand brushed her arm offering help. Her body remembered this feeling too well, the instinct to leave before words turned into something sharper. Behind her, Darren was still talking. "See? That's what she does," he said, his voice rising with the attention. "Plays wounded, walks away, lets people fill in the blanks." "Man, stop," someone said. "You crossed a line." Darren turned, eyes flashing. "You don't know what she put me through." Amara reached the edge of the terrace. The cool night air hit her face, but it didn't cool the heat burning behind her eyes. She paused, one hand resting on the railing, breathing through the ache in her side. The kick replayed in her mind, not the pain, but the intention behind it. The way he'd leaned into it. The way he'd wanted her to feel small. A memory rose uninvited. "Why can't you just lose some weight?" Darren had said years ago, standing in front of the mirror of her old apartment. "People look at us." She'd laughed then, tried to soften it. "I like food. And I like myself." He'd sighed, like she was a problem he'd inherited. Now, years later, the same man stood a few meters away, older, sharper, louder, but unchanged where it mattered. Amara. She stiffened at the sound of her name spoken gently. The woman from earlier stood beside her again. "My name's Elise. I saw everything. If you want, I can stay with you till." "I'm okay," Amara said quietly. "Thank you." Elise hesitated. "Are you sure?" "He seems finished," Amara said, her voice calm. Inside the restaurant, raised voices erupted as the manager finally found his courage. "Sir, I'm asking you to leave. Now." Darren laughed. "For what?" "Telling the truth." "For assault," the manager replied, jaw tight. That word, assault, seemed to sober him for half a second. He glanced around, noticing the phones, the whispers, the way the mood had shifted. "You didn't fall," he said sharply, pointing at Amara. "She didn't fall. Don't twist this." Amara turned then. Slowly. Every sound faded. The clink of cutlery. The hum of traffic. Even Darren's breath seemed to pause. "You kicked me," she said. For words. No accusation. No drama. Just fact. Darren opened his mouth, then closed it. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, maybe. Or fear. But it vanished just as quickly. "Don't start," he muttered. "You're not worth it." Amara nodded once. "I know." And that was the last thing she said to him. She walked toward the curb where the black sedan waited, its headlights dim, almost respectful. The rear door opened before she reached it. Inside, the air was quiet. Warm. Familiar. She slid into the seat, finally letting her shoulders drop. The man beside her didn't ask what happened. He didn't need to. "I'm sorry," she said softly, staring at her hands. He turned to her then. His face was calm, but his eyes, dark, focused, searched hers. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "Not badly." He reached out, not touching her yet, giving her space. "Did he touch you?" "Yes." The silence that followed was not empty. It was heavy, deliberate. Outside, Darren watched the car with mild curiosity. "Who's that?" he asked no one in particular. "Her Uber." The driver closed Amara's door gently and returned to the front. The sedan pulled away without drama. Darren scoffed, relief creeping back in. Figures. But across town, as the car moved through quiet streets, the man beside Amara took out his phone again. He didn't dial immediately. He looked at her first. "I don't want trouble," Amara said, almost anticipating him. "I just want to go home." He nodded. "We will." His thumb hovered over the screen. "But tell me everything." She hesitated, then spoke. Not emotionally, not dramatically. Just clearly. Where it happened. What was said. What was done. Each detail landed like a marker being placed. He listened without interrupting. When she finished, he leaned back slightly and finally placed his hand over hers. Solid. Grounding. "This ends tonight," he said. She looked up sharply. "I don't want revenge." "I know," he replied. "This isn't about revenge." He unlocked his phone and made the call. Across the city, Darren sat alone at the bar, drink in hand, replaying the scene with a smirk. Notifications buzzed on his phone, messages, tags, comments. The video was spreading faster than he expected. "Did you really kick her?" One text read. He ignored it. Then another buzz. And another. A call came in from an unknown number. He frowned and declined it. A moment later, his phone buzzed again, this time from his business partner. "Call me. Now." Darren rolled his eyes but answered. "What?" The voice on the other end sounded strained. "We have a problem." Darren's smile faded. "What kind of problem?" A pause. The kind that doesn't explain itself. If this turn made your stomach drop, tap like and comment what you think Darren is about to lose, because he hasn't even felt the first real consequence yet. Darren straightened in his seat as another unknown number flashed on his screen. This time, he answered. Hello. The line was quiet. Then a calm voice spoke. Stay where you are. Darren's laugh came out sharp and nervous. Who is this? The line stayed quiet for a beat too long. Then the voice returned, unhurried. You heard me. Darren glanced around the bar. The crowd from earlier had thinned, but the bartender had gone quiet, eyes flicking toward him and then away. Darren lowered his voice. Listen, if this is about what happened earlier. The call ended. He stared at his phone, irritation crawling up his spine. Cowards, he muttered, tossing the device onto the counter. He took a long drink, forcing the knot in his chest to loosen. People overreacted. That's all this was. Internet noise. It would pass. His phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a call. An email notification. Subject, account review in progress. He frowned, swiping it open. It was from his bank. Corporate account. The one tied to payroll, investments, everything. Hey, he called to the bartender. You got Wi-Fi here? The bartender nodded slowly. Darren opened his banking app. The balance wheel spun and spun. Then a red banner appeared. Temporary hold. Contact support. Darren's stomach dropped. What the hell? He was refreshed. Same message. He laughed under his breath, trying to keep it light. Maintenance, he said aloud, though no one had asked. Always doing maintenance. Another buzz. This time, a text from his assistant. Darren, compliance just walked in. They're asking for documents from 5 years ago. Did we know this was coming? He typed back fast. No. Tell them to wait. 3 dots appeared. Then it disappeared. Across town, Amara sat quietly on the couch, shoes kicked off, a glass of water untouched on the table in front of her. The apartment was dim, the city humming outside the windows. She stared at nothing, replaying the moment Darren's foot connected with her side, not the pain, but the way the crowd reacted. The way some people looked away. The man, her husband, stood near the window, phone pressed to his ear. He spoke softly, in short sentences. Names. Locations. Times. Yes, he said once. Tonight. Amara closed her eyes. Please, she said, not opening them. Don't do anything permanent. He ended the call and turned to her. Nothing permanent, he said. Only balance. She searched his face. You promise? I promise you'll sleep peacefully tonight. That didn't fully reassure her. But she nodded. Back at the bar, Darren stood up abruptly as another man approached his table. One of his regulars, a real estate guy with too much cologne and too many smiles. Rough night, the man said. Something like that, Darren replied, forcing a grin. The man leaned in, lowering his voice. Listen, I got a call. They're pulling out of the Crescent deal. Darren froze. What? What? They didn't say. Just said it was advised. Advised by who? Darren snapped. The man shrugged, uneasy. That's the thing. No one would say. The bar door opened, letting in a gust of cold air. Darren glanced up instinctively, half expecting someone to walk in and point at him. No one did. His phone buzzed again. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. What do you want? The voice was the same as before. Calm. Measured. You should go home. Darren stood. You don't get to tell me what to do. A pause. Then, your building's elevator is currently out of service. Use the stairs. Darren's breath caught. How do you? The line went dead. He felt it then. Not fear exactly. Something colder. Like realizing you've been standing on ice that's already cracked. He paid quickly and left the bar, scanning the street as he walked. Every passing car felt slower. Every shadow is heavier. He told himself he was imagining things. At his building, the lobby lights were dimmer than usual. A printed notice hung near the elevator. Temporarily out of order. His jaw tightened. He took the stairs 2 at a time, heart pounding harder with each floor. On the 3rd landing, his phone buzzed again. A message this time. You should have apologized. He stopped. Typed back. Who are you? The reply came instantly. Someone who values restraint. He laughed once, harsh. You think you can scare me? No reply. He reached his floor and fumbled with his keys. Inside, the apartment felt wrong. Too quiet. He flicked on the lights. Everything looked the same. Then he noticed the envelope on the kitchen counter. Plain. White. His name written neatly on the front. Hands shaking now, he opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Printed. A list of dates. Transactions. Names he hadn't seen in years. Things he had buried carefully, confidently. At the bottom, one line. This is the part where you choose who you become next. Darren sank into a chair, chest tight, sweat breaking across his forehead. If you're feeling the pressure closing in right now, tap like and tell us in the comments. Should Darren fight back or finally face what he's done? Across the city, Amara's husband watched the security feed from their building, confirming she was safe. He turned off the screen and finally allowed himself to sit. His phone buzzed once more. A message from his contact. He's unraveling. The man replied with 2 words. Not yet. And somewhere, alone in his apartment, Darren stared at the paper, realizing this wasn't about intimidation. It was about control, and he had just lost all of it. Darren didn't sleep. Every time his eyes closed, the list burned behind his eyelids. Numbers, names, dates. Deals he'd sworn were clean. Favors he'd convinced himself were normal. He poured a drink, then another, pacing the apartment like the walls were closing inch by inch. At 3:17 a.m., his phone buzzed again. Not an unknown number this time. Marcus, legal. Darren answered immediately. Tell me you're awake. I am, Marcus said, voice low. And you need to listen carefully. Darren dragged a hand down his face. Someone's messing with me. My accounts, my deals. They're not messing, Marcus cut in. They're exposing. Darren froze. What? I just got a heads up from a friend at compliance, Marcus continued. They're reopening inquiries tied to your early expansions. Stuff that was settled. That's impossible, Darren snapped. Those files were closed. Marcus exhaled slowly. Files don't close forever. They sleep. Darren's throat tightened. Can you fix it? Silence. Marcus, Darren said sharply. Can you fix it? I don't know yet, Marcus replied. But whoever's behind this has reached. Quiet reach. The kind that doesn't ask permission. Darren laughed weakly. You sound scared. I am, Marcus said. And you should be too. The call ended. Darren stared at his phone, hands trembling now, no pretense left. He scrolled through his contacts, stopping on one name he hadn't called in years. Amara. He hovered, then tapped. It rang once. Twice. Voicemail. He didn't leave a message. Across the city, Amara lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She hadn't told her husband about the call attempt. She didn't need to. He already knew. His phone had buzzed seconds before Darren's call ended. Are you okay? He asked quietly from beside her. Yes, she said. Then, after a pause, he tried to call me. Her husband nodded, unsurprised. He will try again. I don't want to talk to him. You won't have to. She turned toward him, studying his face in the low light. You said this wasn't revenge. It isn't, he said. It's correction. Morning came too quickly. Darren's phone exploded with notifications before he even made it out of bed. Missed calls. Emails marked urgent. A calendar alert popped up. Emergency board meeting. Scheduled without his approval. He arrived late, suit wrinkled, jaw tight. The room fell silent when he walked in. Not respectful silence. Cautious silence. The board chair cleared his throat. We've received information that raises serious concerns about your conduct, Darren. Darren forced a smile. This is ridiculous. If this is about some viral nonsense. It's not. The chair interrupted, sliding a folder across the table. Darren opened it. The same list. Only expanded. Dates he didn't recognize. Names he didn't remember agreeing to work with. Paper trails that connected dots he'd never thought anyone could see all at once. Where did you get this? Darren demanded. The chair hesitated. It was delivered. Delivered by who? Another pause. Someone who didn't want credit. Darren pushed back his chair and stood. This is harassment. I'll sue. One of the board members, a woman who'd always supported him, finally spoke. You kicked a woman in public, Darren. His head snapped toward her. That has nothing to do with. It has everything to do with power, she said quietly. And how you use it. He looked around the table, realizing none of them were on his side anymore. Alliances he'd built over a decade were dissolving in real time. The chair folded his hands. We're placing you on temporary leave pending investigation. Darren laughed, loud and brittle. You can't do that. We already have, the chair replied. Darren stormed out, heart hammering, the world tilting beneath his feet. Outside, his phone buzzed. A text. You're learning. He typed back furiously. What do you want from me? The reply took longer this time. Accountability. Darren stopped walking. Across town, Amara stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her coat. The bruise on her side had darkened, blooming beneath the fabric. She touched it lightly, then dropped her hand. "You don't have to go out today," her husband said from the doorway. "I want to," she replied. "I won't hide." He nodded. "I'll have the car ready." As she stepped outside, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. He's asking questions. Desperate ones. She didn't need to ask who he was. She typed back only 3 words. "I'm not involved." Darren sat alone in his car hours later, parked outside Amara's old neighborhood. He didn't know why he was there. Habit, maybe. Or hope. He watched people pass, families laughing, couples arguing, life moving forward without him. His phone rang. This time, he answered without speaking. "You wanted to know what I want," the calm voice said. Darren swallowed. "Yes. I want you to understand," the voice continued, "that the moment you lifted your foot, you gave me permission." "Permission for what?" Darren whispered. The voice lowered. "To show you how small your world really is. If your heart is pounding right now, tap like and comment, because what Darren is about to be offered next will test whether he's capable of real change or total collapse." The call ended. Darren sat there, shaking, as a black sedan rolled slowly past him and disappeared down the street. Darren followed the sedan without thinking. The decision wasn't rational. It wasn't brave. It was instinct, the same kind that makes a man reach for something already falling, even when he knows he won't catch it. He pulled into traffic, keeping distance, hands tight on the steering wheel. The car ahead didn't speed up. It didn't slow down. It moved like it had nothing to fear. They drove for 15 minutes. Then 20. The city thinned. Streetlights spaced farther apart. Darren's phone buzzed twice, but he didn't look down. He couldn't afford to break eye contact with the road, or with the possibility that this was his only chance to face whatever was hunting him. The sedan turned into an underground parking entrance of a private building Darren didn't recognize. No sign. No name. Just a security gate that lifted without the car stopping. Darren hesitated, then followed. The gate lowered behind him with a heavy metallic sound that echoed in the concrete space. His chest tightened. He parked several spaces away as the sedan stopped near a private elevator. The rear door opened. The man stepped out. He wasn't tall in a dramatic way. He wasn't built like a threat. He wore a dark coat, tailored but simple, and moved with the kind of stillness that drew attention without asking for it. He turned slightly, eyes finding Darren's car instantly. As if he'd been expecting him, Darren swallowed and stepped out. For a moment, neither man spoke. The silence felt deliberate, controlled. "You followed me," the man said calmly. Darren forced himself to nod. "I needed answers." The man studied him, not with anger, but with curiosity. That usually comes after listening. Darren clenched his jaw. "You've destroyed my life in less than 24 hours. The man tilted his head. "No. I removed the protections you mistook for permanence." Darren's laugh came out hollow. "Who are you?" The man didn't answer immediately. He turned toward the elevator and pressed the button. "You don't need my name." The door slid open. He stepped inside. After a beat, Darren followed. The doors closed. The elevator began to descend. "I didn't mean to hurt her," Darren said suddenly, the words spilling out as if he'd been holding them underwater. Things got heated. People were watching. "I lost control." The man's reflection stared back at him in the mirrored wall. "You didn't lose control," he said. "You exercised it." The elevator stopped. The doors opened into a private corridor, soft lighting, muted colors, no signage. The man stepped out. "Walk with me," he said. Darren obeyed. As they moved, Darren noticed details that made his skin prickle. Security cameras placed where they couldn't be avoided, doors without handles, the absence of staff despite the building's size. "This is insane," Darren muttered. "If you want money." "I don't," the man interrupted. "If you want an apology." "I don't," he said again. They stopped at a door at the end of the corridor. The man placed his palm against a panel. It slid open soundlessly. Inside was a room with a single table and 2 chairs. Nothing else. "Sit," the man said. Darren did. The man remained standing. "My wife," he began, his voice steady, "spent years learning how to survive the damage you helped create." Darren's throat tightened. "I didn't. She learned silence," the man continued. "Patience. Self-respect. Not because she was weak, but because she was tired of explaining her worth to men who already decided it." Darren looked down. "I didn't know she married you." That's the point, the man replied. You never looked closely enough to see who she became. He finally sat across from Darren. You want to know what happens next? He asked. Darren nodded slowly. Yes. The man leaned forward slightly. You will be offered a choice. Darren's pulse quickened. What kind of choice? Redemption, the man said. Or disappearance. Darren stiffened. You said nothing permanent. The man met his gaze. Permanent doesn't always mean physical. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were documents Darren had never seen, and one he recognized instantly. A signed statement. His name is already printed at the bottom. What is this? Darren whispered. A confession, the man replied. Full transparency. Cooperation. Public accountability. Darren's mouth went dry. This would destroy me. The man's expression didn't change. No. This would end the lie. Darren looked up, voice breaking. And if I refuse? The man leaned back, folding his hands. Then we stop being patient. A beat. Then another. If this moment has you holding your breath, tap like and tell us in the comments. Should Darren sign and face the truth, or fight and lose everything anyway? Darren stared at the pen placed carefully beside the paper. His hand hovered. And somewhere far away, in a quiet apartment, Amara woke suddenly from sleep, her heart racing for reasons she couldn't explain. Amara sat up in bed, breath shallow, hand pressed to her chest. Something was wrong. She swung her legs over the side and stood, pacing the room as the unease refused to settle. Her husband stirred behind her. You felt it too, he said, not a question. She turned to him. Where are you? He didn't answer immediately. That silence told her everything. Tell me you didn't go to him, she said. I didn't go to him, he replied calmly. He came to me. Her jaw tightened. I asked you not to make this about destruction. And I promised you peace, he said, sitting up now. Those two things are not the same. She closed her eyes. You're giving him a choice, aren't you? Yes. And you already know what he'll choose. He didn't deny it. Darren's fingers trembled above the pen. The room felt smaller than it had seconds ago. Not because of walls, but because of time. Every second that passed felt like something was being taken from him. If I sign this, Darren said hoarsely, what happens to me? The man across from him didn't rush to answer. He studied Darren the way one might study a crack in glass, deciding whether it could be repaired or if it would eventually shatter. You tell the truth, he said. Publicly. Completely. You step down from every position that gave you the illusion of untouchability. And after that, Darren pressed. You live with what remains. Darren scoffed weakly. You think that's mercy? No, the man replied. I think it's justice. Darren looked down again at the papers. He could already see the headlines forming in his mind. The fall. The disgrace. The years of work undone in a single signature. You're doing this for her, Darren said quietly. The man's eye sharpened. I'm doing this because of her. A long silence stretched between them. Darren swallowed. If I sign, will you stop? Yes. And if I don't? The man leaned forward, voice lowering just enough to be felt. Then you will spend the rest of your life being dismantled piece by piece, never knowing which part of you will be taken next. Darren's chest tightened. You can't just. I already am, the man interrupted. Darren laughed once, broken. You really think she needs this? You think she wants to watch me burn? The man's gaze softened for the first time. No. That's why this ends now. If you let it. Darren squeezed his eyes shut. Memories crashed over him in fragments. Amara laughed at nothing. Amara was crying quietly in the bathroom, thinking he couldn't hear. The way he'd learned to harden himself instead of listening. The kick replayed again. Not the impact. The moment before it. The decision. His hand closed around the pen. He signed. The sound of ink on paper felt louder than it should have been. The man watched without satisfaction, without triumph. When Darren finished, he collected the papers carefully, standing. It will be released in stages, he said. You will cooperate fully. Any deviation. I know, Darren whispered. The man turned toward the door, then paused. One more thing. Darren looked up. You will apologize, the man said. Not privately. Not strategically. You will apologize in the place you humiliated her. Darren's throat burned. And if she doesn't forgive me? That, the man replied, is none of your concern. The door opened. The man left without another word. The fallout was immediate. By morning, Darren's name was everywhere. Resignation statements. Emergency press conferences. Words like misconduct, abuse of power, Ethical violations repeated endlessly across screens. Darren sat alone on his couch, suit discarded, tie loosened, watching his own dismantling in real time. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "It's done." He didn't reply. Across the city, Amara stood in her kitchen, coffee untouched, watching the same news. Her husband stood behind her, hands resting lightly on the counter, not touching her. "You signed," she said quietly. "Yes." She turned slowly. And now he will face the world he built. She studied her reflection in the darkened screen of the television, stronger than she remembered being, steadier than she'd ever felt. "I didn't ask for this," she said. "No," he agreed. "But you deserve protection." She nodded once. "Promise me something. Anything. If he comes to apologize. I want to hear it." Her husband hesitated for the first time since this began. Then he nodded. "As you wish." That afternoon, Darren stood in front of the same restaurant terrace. Cameras waited. So did people. He swallowed hard as microphones were raised toward him. "I'm here," he began, voice shaking, "to take responsibility." Across the street, unseen by Darren, a black sedan sat idling. Inside, Amara watched. And as Darren took his first step forward, opening his mouth to speak her name, she felt the weight of the moment settle fully on her shoulders, knowing whatever came next would finally close a chapter that had haunted her for years. And the world leaned in, waiting to hear whether Darren's apology would be enough or too late. Amara sat up in bed, breath shallow, hand pressed to her chest. Something was wrong. She swung her legs over the side and stood, pacing the room as the unease refused to settle. Her husband stirred behind her. "You felt it too," he said, not a question. She turned to him. "Where are you?" He didn't answer immediately. That silence told her everything. "Tell me you didn't go to him," she said. "I didn't go to him," he replied calmly. "He came to me." Her jaw tightened. "I asked you not to make this about destruction. And I promised you peace," he said, sitting up now. "Those two things are not the same." She closed her eyes. "You're giving him a choice, aren't you?" "Yes. And you already know what he'll choose." He didn't deny it. Darren's fingers trembled above the pen. The room felt smaller than it had seconds ago, not because of walls, but because of time. Every second that passed felt like something was being taken from him. "If I sign this," Darren said hoarsely, "what happens to me?" The man across from him didn't rush to answer. He studied Darren the way one might study a crack in glass, deciding whether it could be repaired or if it would eventually shatter. "You tell the truth," he said. "Publicly. Completely. You stepped down from every position that gave you the illusion of untouchability. And after that," Darren pressed, "you live with what remains." Darren scoffed weakly. "You think that's mercy?" "No," the man replied. "I think it's justice." Darren looked down again at the papers. He could already see the headlines forming in his mind. The fall. The disgrace. The years of work undone in a single signature. "You're doing this for her," Darren said quietly. The man's eyes sharpened. "I'm doing this because of her." A long silence stretched between them. Darren swallowed. "If I sign, will you stop?" "Yes." "And if I don't?" The man leaned forward, voice lowering just enough to be felt. "Then you will spend the rest of your life being dismantled piece by piece, never knowing which part of you will be taken next." Darren's chest tightened. "You can't just—" "I already am," the man interrupted. Darren laughed once, broken. "You really think she needs this? You think she wants to watch me burn?" The man's gaze softened for the first time. "No. That's why this ends now. If you let it." Darren squeezed his eyes shut. Memories crashed over him in fragments. Amara laughed at nothing. Amara was crying quietly in the bathroom, thinking he couldn't hear. The way he'd learned to harden himself instead of listening. The kick replayed again. Not the impact. The moment before it. The decision. His hand closed around the pen. He signed. The sound of ink on paper felt louder than it should have been. The man watched without satisfaction, without triumph. When Darren finished, he collected the papers carefully, standing. "It will be released in stages," he said. "You will cooperate fully. Any deviation—" "I know," Darren whispered. The man turned toward the door, then paused. "One more thing." Darren looked up. "You will apologize," the man said. "Not privately. Not strategically. You will apologize in the place you humiliated her." Darren's throat burned. "And if she doesn't forgive me?" "That," the man replied, "is none of your concern." The door opened. The man left without another word. The fallout was immediate. By morning, Darren's name was everywhere. Resignation statements, emergency press conferences. Words like misconduct, abuse of power, ethical violations repeated endlessly across screens. Darren sat alone on his couch, suit discarded, tie loosened, watching his own dismantling in real time. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "It's done." He didn't reply. Across the city, Amara stood in her kitchen, coffee untouched, watching the same news. Her husband stood behind her, hands resting lightly on the counter, not touching her. "You signed," she said quietly. "Yes." She turned slowly. And now he will face the world he built. She studied her reflection in the darkened screen of the television, stronger than she remembered being, steadier than she'd ever felt. "I didn't ask for this," she said. "No," he agreed. "But you deserve protection." She nodded once. "Promise me something. Anything. If he comes to apologize. I want to hear it." Her husband hesitated for the first time since this began. Then he nodded. "As you wish." That afternoon, Darren stood in front of the same restaurant terrace. Cameras waited. So did people. He swallowed hard as microphones were raised toward him. "I'm here," he began, voice shaking, "to take responsibility." Across the street, unseen by Darren, a black sedan sat idling. Inside, Amara watched. And as Darren took his first step forward, opening his mouth to speak her name, she felt the weight of the moment settle fully on her shoulders, knowing whatever came next would finally close a chapter that had haunted her for years. And the world leaned in, waiting to hear whether Darren's apology would be enough or too late. The cameras closed in as Darren stepped up to the microphones, the terrace buzzing with low voices and flashing lights. He cleared his throat once, twice, as if sound itself had become something he had to earn back. "My name is Darren Cole," he said, "and I'm here because I failed, publicly, violently, and without excuse." A ripple moved through the crowd. Across the street, inside the idling sedan, Amara's hands tightened in her lap. Her husband said nothing. He watched her reflection in the dark glass instead of the man speaking. Darren continued. "I assaulted a woman I once claimed to love. I humiliated her. I abused power I didn't deserve." He swallowed hard. "Her name is Amara." Hearing her name spoken like that, without sarcasm, without contempt, sent a sharp ache through her chest. Darren looked up, eyes scanning the crowd, not knowing she was watching. "I won't ask for forgiveness," he said. "I don't deserve it. But I owe her the truth." Someone shouted, "Why now?" Darren flinched. "Because silence protects the wrong people. And I've been protected for too long." Amara closed her eyes. Memories flooded in uninvited. Her younger self sitting on the edge of a bed, apologizing for taking up space. Laughing too loud to compensate. Shrinking so others could feel bigger. She opened her eyes again just as Darren said, "What I did that night was not an accident. It was a choice." A murmur spread. Her husband finally spoke. "You don't have to stay." "I know," Amara replied. "But I want to hear this part." Darren's voice cracked. "I hurt her because I felt exposed. And instead of facing that, I chose cruelty." For the first time, his eyes glistened. Not theatrically, not performatively, just tired. "If you're watching this," Darren said, "I'm sorry for what I took from you that night. And for what I tried to take from you years before, your dignity." Silence fell. No applause. No shouting. Just the sound of cameras whirring, desperate to capture a reaction that didn't come. Amara let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. "Is that it?" she asked quietly. Her husband didn't answer immediately. His gaze stayed fixed on Darren, sharp and measuring. "For him," he said slowly, "yes." Darren stepped back from the microphones, shoulders sagging. Reporters shouted questions, but he didn't respond. He turned away, walking down the same steps where he'd once stood laughing. The sedan door opened. Amara stepped out. Her heels clicked softly against the pavement as she crossed the street, each step deliberate. Heads turned. Whispers followed. "Is that her?" "That's Amara. She looks calm." Darren saw her too late. He stopped mid-step, blood draining from his face. "Amara," he said, barely audible. The cameras swung instantly. She stopped a few feet away from him, close enough to see the fear in his eyes now. Not fear of consequences. Fear of her. "You apologized," she said. "That matters." He nodded quickly, hope flickering. "I meant every word." "I know," she replied. The word but hovered unspoken between them. She glanced briefly at the cameras, then back at Darren. "This isn't about forgiveness," she said calmly. "It's about the truth." She stepped closer. "You didn't hurt me because you were angry. You hurt me because you thought I was smaller than you." Darren's lips trembled. "I was wrong." "Yes," she said. "You were." The crowd held its breath. "If this moment matters to you," Amara continued, "then remember it the next time you see someone you think you're better than." She turned away before he could speak again. Darren reached out instinctively, stopping himself at the last second, his hand falling back to his side. As Amara walked back toward the sedan, her phone buzzed in her coat pocket. She glanced down. A message from an unknown number. "He isn't finished unraveling." Her steps slowed. She looked up, and for the first time that day, her calm wavered. Inside the car, her husband watched her expression change. "What is it?" he asked. She hesitated. "Someone's still moving pieces." He frowned slightly. That wasn't part of the agreement. Across the street, Darren's phone buzzed too. He looked down. The color drained from his face. The same message appeared on his screen. "This was only the beginning. If your chest tightens just now, tap like and stay with us. Because the final truth about who's really in control hasn't been revealed yet." Amara slid into the sedan, heart pounding, as her husband lifted his phone and made a call he hadn't planned to make. And somewhere far beyond the cameras, someone else was watching, preparing to remind them all that consequences don't always stop when you ask them to. The call connected to the second ring. Her husband didn't speak first. He listened. His posture shifted almost imperceptibly, the way it did when something unexpected entered a controlled space. Amara noticed immediately. She leaned forward. "What is it?" He ended the call and lowered the phone slowly. "There's a third party." Her stomach tightened. "Third party?" "Yes," he said. "Someone who benefited from Darren's rise. Someone who doesn't want the truth to finish spreading." Across the city, Darren sat alone in the back of a rideshare, hands clenched, staring at the message glowing on his screen. This was only the beginning. His phone buzzed again, this time a call from Marcus. "Do not answer questions," Marcus said the moment Darren picked up. "We have a serious problem." Darren laughed weakly. "I thought the problem was already public." "This is different," Marcus replied. "Someone just leaked additional documents. Not part of what you signed. Offshore accounts. Shell companies. Stuff even I didn't know about." Darren's chest seized. "That's impossible." "I believe you," Marcus said. "Which means someone else is using your collapse as cover." The car stopped at a red light. Darren whispered, "I did what they asked." "I know," Marcus said. "And whoever this is doesn't care." The call dropped. Back in the sedan, Amara stared out the window as the city blurred past. The feeling in her chest was familiar now, not fear, but awareness. "They're trying to turn him into a distraction," she said quietly. Her husband glanced at her. "Yes. So this isn't about him anymore." "No," he replied. "It's about exposure." She was silent for a long moment. Then stopped protecting him. Her husband studied her face. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "I don't need him punished. I need the truth finished." The car slowed. He picked up his phone again, typing a single message before sending it. "Release everything." Across newsrooms, phones rang. Emails flooded inboxes. Producers leaned forward in chairs as new files appeared, connected not just to Darren, but to donors, partners, executives who had quietly shaped narratives from behind closed doors. By nightfall, the story had changed. Darren was no longer the center. He was the doorway. He watched it unfold from his apartment, knees pulled to his chest, television volume low. Names he recognized scrolled across the screen. Men who had once shaken his hand, praised his ambition, laughed at his jokes. Now they were being questioned, investigated, pulled into the light. His phone buzzed one last time. A message from an unknown number. "You're free now. Stay that way." Darren exhaled, tears finally spilling, not from loss, but from the strange, hollow relief of knowing the chase was over. Elsewhere, in a quiet apartment high above the city, Amara stood barefoot on the balcony. The bruise on her side was fading. The ache inside her chest felt lighter. Her husband stepped beside her. "It's done." She nodded. "Good." He watched her carefully. "Do you regret any of it?" She thought for a moment, then shook her head. "No. I regret the years I thought I had to stay small to survive." He reached for her hand. This time, she didn't pull away. The city continued below them. Cars moving, lives intersecting, Stories beginning and ending without permission. Amara leaned into him slightly. Promise me something. Anything. Next time, she said softly. We choose peace first. He smiled faintly. Agreed. Far below, the restaurant terrace was empty now. Chairs stacked. Tables wiped clean. No sign of the moment that had changed so many lives. But some moments don't disappear. They echo. And somewhere, someone would remember what it costs to underestimate the quiet ones. Some stories don't end when the screen goes dark. They stay with you. Stay with us on Afro-Korean Tender Heart Stories. Another powerful story is waiting for you.